Hello and welcome. This week I have a knitting project to show you. I started way back in November and have been working at it slowly for many months. But finally it's all finished and I've spent this week editing through the video footage to try and make something a little bit watchable. I'm not sure how interesting it is watching somebody else's knitting project, but here it is anyway. As I said, I started way back in November, so here I am, November 2022, November 2022, as I started my knitting project. Hello and welcome. Today I'm all snuggled up in the corner of the sofa, ready to start a knitting project. I'm hoping to make an Aran jumper, actually an Aran cardigan. I'm going to put buttons up the front. Now I'm not going to complete the Aran cardigan in one hit today. This video will have to be filmed over several weeks. Up until a couple of months ago, although I can knit, I can cast on, cast off, knit and purl, I've never actually followed a knitting pattern. I'd been making lots of my own clothes with a sewing machine, dresses and skirts and tops, and decided it would be nice to be able to make all the items of clothing I was wearing. Could I actually knit a jumper from a pattern? So I gave it a go, and I'm delighted to say I did manage to knit a jumper from a pattern. My local B&M was selling this gorgeous sparkly wool at a very reasonable £2.50 a ball. So I bought myself a half dozen balls of wool, got onto eBay, ordered a pattern, and managed to make myself a lovely sparkly pink cardigan. Having made my pink cardigan successfully, I decided what I really wanted was a nice warm woolly brown cardigan to go with my winter wardrobe. This is my pink cardigan all finished, and here's the brown one. The two cardigans were knitted from the same knitting pattern. Since I started, I've had it in mind that I wanted to make, it's upside down, that I wanted to make this Aran jumper, Aran cardigan. I keep calling it a jumper. I'm sure I will continue to do so. It's a cardigan with buttons up the front. So as I didn't film my first adventure following a knitting pattern for the very first time, I've decided to put this video together with my first ever attempt at an Aran cardigan. Now, as I said, I can knit and purl, cast on, cast off. But doing all these fancy pattern works, oh, I've no idea. I'm hoping the knitting pattern might tell me what I need to do. So let's get knitting and see how I get on. I have, of course, bought myself some Aran wool. I went for this traditional standard creamy colour. Now, this is not an actual sheep's wool. I think it's 100% acrylic. It'll say somewhere, where are we? Knitting yarn. Yes, 100% acrylic. But it's an Aran, so it should be the right size and thickness. Again, from my local B&M. I bought it months ago when I first started. It was there and available, and I knew my long-term goal was to knit an Aran cardigan. So I thought I'd get the wool while I could. So I have 7 balls of this, which I hope is going to be far too much for my cardigan project, but I'd rather have too many than run out. If I have lots left when I've finished, perhaps I'll knit a hat and a scarf to go with my cardigan. So the first thing I have to do before I start knitting the actual cardigan is a little test square of just 10 stitches by 14 rows, just to make sure that my knitting style, the thickness of my wool and needles, and the way that I personally knit gives me the right sizing for this pattern. So 10 stitches and 14 rows over double moss stitch on number 4.5 needles. What is double moss stitch? Well, there's my first problem. I'm going to have to Google or YouTube a double moss stitch. I have no idea what double moss stitch is. So let's go and have a look at that. Well, I've checked out YouTube and found a lovely lady called Hannah, Knit with Hannah. I will link to her channel in my description, and she's shown me how to do moss stitch. So I've done 4 rows already, copying along with her video. So now to do another 10, because my pattern said I needed 14 rows of moss stitch to make my little sample. It's basically a knit 1, purl 1, knit 1, purl 1, knit 1, purl 1. But when you turn it round to do the second row of knitting, where you had a purl, you will knit it, and where you had a knit, you will purl it. So we should be making like a little tiny checkerboard effect. It's looking okay so far. So I'll see you when I've done 14 rows. So here we have it, my little tiny 10 by 14 square of moss stitch. I like it, it's really nice. It's got a lovely textured knobbly bobbly feeling to it. So let's see what size this is supposed to be. My pattern says 10 stitches and 14 rows equals 2.5 inches or 5 centimetres over double moss stitch. Over double moss stitch. Oh, now this is moss stitch, not double moss stitch. What's double moss stitch? I think I'll be back to Hannah and see if she can tell me. Well, here I am, 4 rows in on double moss stitch. So thank you, Hannah. She did show me how to do this, and I followed along for my first few rows. Not surprisingly, it's very much like the moss stitch. In moss stitch, you did a knit 1, purl 1, knit 1, purl 1. And then on the second row, you reversed that. Where there was a knit, you did a purl. Where there was a purl, you did a knit. Now with the double moss stitch, I must admit before I started, I thought would be knit 2, purl 2, knit 2, purl 2. But no, it is still the same, knit 1, purl 1, knit 1, purl 1. But on the second row, if it was a knit, you knit it. And if it was a purl, you purl it. So you have 2 rows, both the same. But on row 3 and 4 is when you reverse it. So that's the double. 2 rows, knit, purl, and then 2 rows, purl, knit. I'll finish this off and do its 14 rows and see if it's any different in size to the incorrect moss stitch. I like the moss stitch. I'm glad I've learned how to do it. I'll certainly use it in the future. Feels lovely in this thick chunky wool. Well, here we have it. My finished little square of double moss stitch. I'm not sure which way up. I should hold that. Yeah, that way. It's good as any. In comparison to my moss stitch, I have learned apparently moss stitch is sometimes referred to as seed stitch. I can see why, because it, especially here, has these individual little bobbles are like little seeds. They are, however, both the same size, even though the pattern's slightly different.